All right, team. I am between projects right now, and I have just been on the internet arguing about all kinds of things, getting fired up. And so I've decided it's time, I've been putting this off for a while, to make the one political video I will ever make. There should be no questions left after this, and probably no viewers either. I'm going to attack everybody. Before we dive into this, I really want to make it clear that my personal feelings, beliefs, thoughts do not reflect what I think should be policy for everyone. It would be insane to me for me to think that everyone living under different circumstances should live the way I live. That's really, really stupid and actually evil. So, don't think that just because I don't like furries, that I think something bad should happen to furries. I hate furries. They burned my homeland, and I have lots of issues with them as a group. I would physically fight, enter into mortal combat with another human to defend a furry's right to be who they are and do what they want to do. They're not actually hurting anybody, even if I fucking hate them. So if you find yourself on my list, don't think that I hate you individually as a person. I don't. I'm talking about the group of people that maybe you belong to. So, we got our Creamy Creations H&B chocolate fudge brownie. Not endorsed by them. They absolutely have nothing to do with anything I'm about to say. Let's get into it. Now, I'm going to contradict everything I just said, and we're going to start out with something that is absolutely indefensible. Okay, so billionaires, indefensible in any context ever. If you had $1 billion and you still had $1 billion at the end of the day, you are a bad person. There is suffering that you could alleviate and you choose not to. And it's not a little bit of suffering either. You know your duty as a billionaire is to fucking do something. And when you don't, you're a bad person. You're just literally evil. So, billionaires at the top. Now, a lot of people get mad at corporations, their bosses, the system, the government. I think all of it stems from private land ownership and landlords. The idea that you can own land that you're not using and then extract resources and wealth from somebody simply to use it is unhinged. You're actually just the worst. I have thought about this a lot. I've heard a lot of arguments. People are like, oh, but I love landlords. What if I need to live somewhere short term and owning a home there doesn't make any sense? Renting is a great option for me. Yes, but does it need to be private land ownership? Could the city just own the place that you stay temporarily and then your dollars go to the fucking taxes instead? The idea that anyone has more claim to a specific geography than others angers me. If the landlord was not breathing down your neck, you could quit your job. You could take sick leave. You might even go to a doctor once in a while who's going to say, hey, your leg's broken. Take 3 weeks off work. But you're not going to starve in the streets if the city owns all the housing. But I hear you. You want to own a home someday, and I think you should be able to own a home on the land, but not own the land. If you are not actually using that land, we need to have a regular system that reclaims it and gives it to somebody that will. It is this remote ownership that is killing us. And the same goes for all the storefronts in town. I don't think Walmart should be able to own a building. I think the city should own the building and be like, hey, do we want a Walmart here? And then the people of the city should be able to say, fuck no, Walmart kills cities. Yeah, in general, I think that owning something that you're not even using and then extracting wealth from other people to use it is super douchey. But crap, the homeless. Yeah, I agree. Many people think that the homeless are these drug-addicted, evil, criminal, dangerous people, and some of them are. But you know what group has more psychopaths than homeless combined? Management. Landlords. Billionaires. are all psychopaths. Homeless folks are just people. People that can't pay their rent to the landlords. And truly, honestly, I mean this from the depths of my soul. We have to judge the quality of a country, like the status of that country, by the worst you can do in society, not the best. There being 10 billionaires doesn't help anybody. There being no homeless helps everybody. So if you see a homeless guy, that's not just a homeless guy. It's not some other species of human that we need to hide away. That's you, asshole. But for the grace of God, RNG, ill fortune, you get leprosy, that's fucking you. So we need to raise the floor rather than the ceiling. Just people. So I know that I said that furries were just the worst. Two of my best friends that played Phantasy Star Online with me were bronies, okay? But way back in the day, when I was first getting into online games and starting to roleplay and Ultima Online, and I logged into World of Warcraft, furries took over Goldshire. And ever since, it has been like trying to outrun the sun on the horizon to escape this plague. Every single role-playing community, it starts with, ironically, furry flirting. And then it becomes sexual harassment. And then it becomes full-blown ERP. Again, this is not all furries, but this is my own personal experience with furries and why I avoid them. If I see that you are like a cat girl on Mastodon, I block you. I just do. It triggers me. But I recognize that that's my problem. That's not you, that's me. So, furries are the first to go into trauma bias. Similarly, I cannot stand fake voices. But by extension of that, for a long, long time, due to my upbringing and this fact, I thought that I had a problem with gay people. Super don't. Actually, it turns out that I have a problem with fake people and creepy sexual people. I realized some time ago that the thing that drives me crazy is when the most interesting thing about you is your sexuality. I find you to be an incredibly boring person. I don't find sexuality all that interesting as a topic. Like, at all. I think that the most interesting sexual topics are between two people. And it's kind of irrelevant outside of those two people. So, like, everyone has their own preferences, and everyone has their own weird stuff that they like or don't like. And there's no right or wrong to it. It's just like, hey, don't scratch me there, or hey, please scratch me there. And it's like, who cares beyond these two people? So, what actually was driving me crazy was the gay affect, the fake voice that some gays put on. Now, some gays got it for real, they do. But a lot of them, especially where I grew up, where there were a ton of fake gays, in the early 2000s when everyone was emo. And this was further solidified. This was brought to a tipping point with streamers. I can't stand streamer voice. I'm sure you can't either. I fucking hate it. It grates on me. If I open a video and they're like, hey guys, I close it immediately. Immediately I close it. I don't mute it. I don't give you a second chance. I block your channel immediately if you do streamer voice. But another place that I realized this was driving me crazy was country music. There is this fake Southern drawl twang that people do that is really obvious. Nobody in the last 30 years has grown up talking that way. And you're making a point of doing it. And it's so annoying. It's so funny when they're on TV or something and there are people from Texas that do this crazy accent. We don't sound like that. We seriously do not. So yes, fake voices go straight to rude or annoying. They're not irredeemably evil, but I really wish they would fucking stop. News is gonna love this video. When people tell me what they think, I generally just implicitly, just unconsciously filter out the content of what they actually say, and I latch on to why they think what they think. If you read it in a book and that's why you believe it, whether it's gravity or talking snakes, you are the exact same person to me. If you went into the forest and did a bunch of stuff and you discovered divinity or you discovered gravity, you're the same person to me. The way that you reach your conclusions is generally how I think of you as a person. And it is why I don't engage with most people about most topics, because people reach dumb conclusions for dumb reasons. A core aspect of my worldview is that everybody thinks something stupid for a stupid reason. Until I was like 20, I was afraid of witches hiding in my shower behind the shower curtain. I thought mirror people would reach out and grab me. This is because I watched some movies at too young of an age, and it planted in my subconscious, and I was afraid of it for the longest time. That's a really stupid reason to think something, but it's also true and real and how actual humans work. I know that you all think something stupid for a stupid reason. But a lot of you would say, but Republicans want to put women in cages and Gilead and all these things. And I get where you're coming from. Super do. But it's not actually true, right? So most people want to reach the same conclusions. They just fundamentally disagree about the facts and the method to get there. Most people want prosperity for themselves and the people around them. If a liberal person believed that they were killing babies, they would probably do everything they could to stop it. But they don't. And that is largely completely random, based on where you grew up, how you grew up, what information you've been exposed to, what information you accepted, and what level of research you've done. Now, vaccines are one that split people down the middle pretty hard. A lot of people that did their own research actually read an article about a study that might just be a guy citing other studies that he didn't participate in or have any clue about. Some people have deep technical scientific knowledge. I am friends with chemists and cybersecurity experts. Like, I know a lot of big brain guys that do stuff for realsies. They also think stupid things for stupid reasons. And what I would say is that I have never been so sure of anything that I would hold a gun to somebody's head and say, you must live this way. I just haven't. I find that far more dangerous than either of the positions presented. Extending off of this is what I call culturally Christian and actually Christian. So if you are culturally part of one of these groups that super thinks a thing, but you just kind of grew up there and absorbed it, and maybe you go to church on Sundays and you sing the songs and you see your friends and you have potlucks, but your fundamental beliefs are not actually dictated by the source material, you're culturally Christian. That's totally fine. That is most Christians. They're just part of the group. They're not actually out there advocating for any of the things in the book. But then there are people that think like the purity of their Jewish blood, being able to track their ancestors back to Abraham is like a flex, because they think that the purity of that blood raises them above others. When questioned aggressively, many of these people will say, we're not above, we're just different. But I just can't get on board with anyone that says your immutable characteristics, especially your genetic bloodline, determines your place in society. Can't do it. So if you're culturally Christian or Islam or Jewish or scientist or troubadour, you are probably not malicious. But your line of thinking is dangerous to me. But if your entire belief system about the world around you is based on the story of an ancestor that you never met, wrote in a book about his ancestor eons ago, and that's good enough for you to make judgments about your life and others, you are a threat to us all. You just are. That is not a good way to reach conclusions. Again, if you went into the forest and you had a vision quest and you met God and that changed your life, we're good. You're not doing anything crazy here. You went out and you did your work and you reached a conclusion. What that conclusion is, not important to me. How you got there is what matters. And a lot of people will be like, hey, Jesus is in me. And I get it, but would you have that same conclusion if you didn't feel that? If you hadn't experienced the things that you've experienced, would you still be the zealot that you are? And if not, leave people the fuck alone. Switching gears somewhat dramatically now, when I was in Iowa, I met a lot of farmers. And it was the strangest thing to me because my entire life, I've heard about these noble men, the farmers that feed us all, working from dawn until night, living on the mere scraps of money left after the harvest. That was sadly not my experience. Some of them didn't even work their farms anymore. They just owned the land. And others were the laziest sacks of shit I have ever met in my entire life. It was shocking. They actually described to me in great detail how the subsidy from the government to grow their corn, the corn that is used as food for the hogs that make the fertilizer for their own corn, and nothing else. This is not growing food or fuel for anyone. They literally sell the corn to the hogs, who then sell back the fertilizer to grow the corn. And the government foots the bill. And this guy's rolling around in $1 million tractors, bragging about his LLC and how he writes everything off as a tax thing because, oh, need a new truck for work. I have the most soured view of farmers possible. Now, I believe there are good farmers out there. I believe that there are honest, hardworking men doing good things for the nation, for the world. But every single farmer that I personally met, fuck that guy. I hope you guys are having as much fun as I am because we are not nearly done. This is going to be a long video. Nudes is going to fucking love it. And by the end, you will know my opinion on every political thing possible. So let's talk about AI. I think most pro-AI guys are willfully ignorant. They don't understand the tragedy that we underwent recently. It wasn't a long time ago. It was recently that tons of not just creative people, but productive professional people had their work stolen. And before Congress, they were told, too bad, so sad. Professional musicians went to Congress and said, like, hey man, this is actually super messed up. These guys just stole all our work. And Congress was like, what you gonna do? And we are still like, we lost people in the sloppening. People who used to do art, people who used to code publicly, people that used to post their work online and be part of the community have withdrawn. They're gone forever, effectively, because they didn't want to be part of this gross thing where their works are stolen, reconfigured, and then they try to sell it back to them as a lesser, shittier thing. When an AI guy walks into a room and he's like, I don't understand why everybody's so upset, he's basically wearing a Confederate flag. He's like, oh. He's necromantically controlling the corpses of our fallen brothers to dance on their graves. And he's like, I don't know why you're so upset. It drives me crazy. I was trying to stay out of the AI thing and like make my stance known without talking about it in a video. Because again, I think a lot of people think stupid things for stupid reasons, and that makes them not malicious, just dangerous. But at this point, the US government has declared that anyone talking bad about AI is a domestic terrorist. So now I have to sign up and say, fuck you guys. But there are many aspects of the AI conversation. If we say only those couple of companies did the dirty and new AI models that are locally hosted are totes legit and not hurting anybody, well, it's a little harder. Is AI capable of art? Another fine question. I am not a super technically savvy guy. I'm not like big brain like the people I'm surrounded with. So I tried AI when they're like, this is actually good for coding. My experience was that it was awful. As I expected, AI doesn't actually know what anything is. It doesn't know what words are. It can't count the letters in a word. And it definitely doesn't know how code works. It was trained on troll responses from Stack Exchange. So you'll ask, like, how do I print this thing? And people will be like, well, write a little assembly and it'll get you right there. So now AI is like, oh, we'll just slap an assembly there. And it's like, whoa now, why would you ever do that? And it's not because the AI is confused or super smart no, it's because people used to troll on Stack Exchange. There are long threads of posting more and more convoluted ways to print something. It's so funny to me to see the history of the internet that I've grown up on represented, and people just don't remember, I guess, because it's really obvious to me, both in the art and in the code, like exactly what posts these things are coming from. It's gross. But let's say you found an ethical way to run locally, trained only on your own information, I guess. This super dumb thing that can't do anything but Mad Libs. Could you then use it to make art? I believe that a human could use AI to make an artistic statement. In the same way that you could shoot a gun at a barn wall and it could be an artistic statement. Art's weird. As long as you're expressing something, making people feel something, like there are ways to do it that would qualify as art, in my opinion. However, making dumb pictures of Obama is not it. I also recognize that I am not smart enough to make a logically consistent argument against AI. I could say environmental concerns, and somebody would say, oh, we fixed that, and I would still have a problem with AI. That's not the real reason I don't like it. And so I've spent a lot of time on this. I've been in a lot of debates and read a lot of threads, and my conclusion is that I just don't like it. Don't like it one bit. Didn't like infotainment centers. Probably won't like the next thing. I like simple mechanics. I like simple buttons that do the goddamn thing I said to do. I use Linux. I live in the terminal. I absolutely hate over-engineered bullshit. And especially Mad Libs trying to guess what I'm trying to say when I already learned a language to talk to computers. So I'm going to put AI in trauma bias, even though many of you will think that it's actually evil. But you have to understand that this includes a hypothetical, theoretical world where they have answered all of my complaints, where it's doing super good work, it is not environmentally costly, it has been trained on willing participants, and it is not owned by billionaires. In that circumstance, then it would be trauma bias. Minus any of those, it goes actually evil. Moving right along, let's talk about all cops are bastards. I thought at one point in my life that I might become a policeman. I wanted to be the good guy on the inside. And then I started watching First Amendment auditors. And what I found was that you actually can't be a policeman without being willing to put a human being in a cage over words, gestures, paperwork. The things that they were arresting people for, adding charges on top of, and the system that they were enabling is total ludicrous bullshit. The idea that resisting arrest can be a charge on its own, with no accompanying charge, is insane. Civil asset forfeiture is crazy. This is where cops can just take your money, and that's it. There's no other step to that. There's no checks or balances. You have to actually sue them to get it back at your own cost in civil court. Yeah, they don't need a search warrant. They don't need a warrant of any kind. They can just take your money, and that is the end of that thought. Civil asset forfeiture is crazy. But I thought, hey, there's probably some cops out there who are trying to defend people and, stop crime. But then I dug into that, and I started looking at the kind of, shall we say, skewed arrest rates, prison rates. And then I learned about for-profit prisons. For you guys maybe outside of the US, this will be crazy, but slavery is legal on prisoners, and most of the prison population is black, men in their working age years. And to be a cop, you have to contribute to this system. Or you just get fired, right? But then I thought, maybe they're not malicious, just dangerous. So then I started watching these videos about this guy who's like, hey, point out the good cop, because surely he'll arrest the bad cops. And then I realized, no, that never happens. That virtually never happens. I watched more and more town hall meetings where cops were just blatantly violating the First Amendment and arresting people, forcing them into cuffs, into cages, Old women that could not put up a fight in a million years, even if they had a gun, were getting slammed onto the ground and handcuffed. And nobody batted an eye, much less arrested that cop. It was police chief. So I actually don't think that cops are redeemable. Additionally, every step they take to prevent crime, I'm not comfortable with. I think we should be punishing criminals and kind of fucking off before that point. No crime, no cop. Of course, this will slide us nicely into the death penalty. This used to be a much bigger deal than it is now. People don't talk about it a lot now. But let's talk about Luigi Mangione, who allegedly killed a CEO. He was charged with murder in the state and terrorism at the federal level. He was escorted with the most hilarious perp walk I've ever seen. They actually took turns swapping in and out so they could get photo ops perp walking him. This is for one CEO, one guy who was definitely a killer. Got killed allegedly by Luigi. I don't think it was Luigi. But meanwhile, people that go on shooting sprees, people that drive vehicles through buildings, they get out on bail the next day. Luigi's still in jail on terrorism charges. Additionally, they recently ruled that the first search of his bag had to be thrown out of court. How they can keep the second search in is insane to me. The whole point is that they put stuff in the bag. So if you throw out the first search, how can you possibly keep the second? Anyway, that's not the point. The point is death penalty. Death penalty. I don't think the state gets it right often enough. I think they're incompetent enough, and they have a big enough history of mistakes that we should not give the state the power to kill citizens. But that grand history of ineptitude is the only reason I think that. I think if we just killed people the day that we gave them life in prison because it's effectively the same goddamn thing, I think it's wildly unhinged to put an 18-year-old in a cage for the rest of their life. If the state wants to execute somebody, I think they should just do it. Get it over with. But they want to work them in those prisons first, don't they? So we're going to put death penalty, threat to us all, because I don't trust the state to have the power to kill a citizen. It's a mistake. They just can't be trusted. On the topic of the US government being liars and cheats, let's talk about the moon landing. Now, here's the thing. I was not alive when the first moon landing happened. I do not have any kind of scientific knowledge base to appreciate the moon landing. I don't know anything about rockets. I don't know anything about celestial bodies. I don't know anything about the effort or the activity it would take to get a man to the moon. What I do know is that the government, the US government specifically, is the most well-documented liar in all of history. They admit themselves that they lie to and poisoned Americans. They cannot be trusted, and that is the only reason I don't believe in the moon landing. I just don't trust the government at all. And I think that should be like the basic position of everyone. If the government said it, it's probably not true. But this again goes back to, how do you reach your conclusions, right? If you believe it because the government said it, you're a big dum-dum and we need to have a talk. If you believe it because you understand all that stuff that I don't, then surely you understand why I don't believe it. Because I don't understand any of that. And the government told me. Every time the government tells me something, it ends up they're full of shit. Like, in totality, the arguments I've heard for the moon landing are from, like, Don Pettit simultaneously bragging that we went to the moon with tinfoil and a 4 kilobyte computer and a woman doing math on paper, but then also saying that we can't go back because we destroyed the technology and it's too painful to rebuild it. I can't reconcile all of these things that contradict each other in a way that makes me think that they're not full of shit. Like, it's not enough for me to trust the government, because the government, again, most documented liar in history. So if you promote the moon landing, if you're like we went to the moon, we're so fucking sick, totally fine. You're just people. That's it. If you believe that we went to the moon because the government said it, not malicious. You're just dangerous. Now, you may think I'm an enlightened centrist that thinks both sides are equally bad. Actually, I think there's only one side. It's the billionaires, and they fucking suck. I don't think that my vote matters. I think it's been rigged for a long time. I think that voting is a huge waste of time for me. I'm not a big fan of democracy in general. I think it's reasonable, and maybe even our best solution, for the majority of people, for having a majority of votes be the thing that we do as a society. However, my entire life, from the minute I was born until now, I have never won a vote anywhere, ever. This makes your democracy, where good things sometimes happen, or could happen, not the same reality I live in. It is just a steamroll. It's just like the Matrix, where I have the illusion that I can do something, but actually it is completely tyrannical to me and my people. There has never been something that was relevant to my interests on a ballot. The things that I care about, like ending private land ownership and getting rid of billionaires, not just taxing them, and turbo funding local libraries, is not a thing that I can vote on. I generally would never vote for a candidate that is not actively advocating to limit the power of their own position. Every politician I've ever seen in my entire lifetime has been a psychopath. And I know people like to be like, oh, lesser of two evils, lesser of two evils. But again, put yourself in my shoes, where my vote literally has never once counted, and imagine that you believe it's rigged. Why on earth would I go vote? Just in case? That's not a thing. But again, I can't stress this enough throughout this video, is that I always leave room for me to be wrong. Right? I am open to the idea that my vote super matters and I can control outcomes. However, all evidence is to the contrary. Like, Hillary won the popular vote. She should have been the president. All the reasons that she's not are all the reasons I have no faith in elections. What's more, I think that the illusion of voting holds us hostage a little bit. In theory, somebody inside or outside of the United States should have done something by now, but it would seem that democracy was not important enough to anyone inside or outside of the United States to actually do anything about it. Interesting. I'm going to put this one down to just people, but understand that I do not like the current system. I don't think that voting is a great strategy to achieve outcomes. Okay, but let's talk about some of the things that we vote for, right? People are fired up about universal healthcare. Do I think we should have universal healthcare? I think that if you ask any person on the planet, from Kalahari Bushmen to like douchey guy in France, and you ask them what are the first three priorities of a communal fund owned by the government, food, shelter, and water should be like the first three things they list. If we collect taxes to build roads before we collect taxes to fucking feed people, we've made a mistake, an obvious mistake. Immediately after housing, watering, and feeding everybody, we should probably make sure they're not bleeding out. Now, I don't think that should include all possible medical procedures. I don't want to pay for your facelift. I just don't. But if it's literally the difference between your life and death, if you have a chronic disease that you need treatments for to not be in constant pain, then yeah, we should pay for that. And why should we pay for that? We should pay for that because it's only by random chance that it's not us. You may have been born able-bodied with a functioning brain, all your airways working right, your skin doesn't burst into flames when you go outside, you can think straight, but that's not true for everyone, and it's not a moral failing to need help. So we have to decide, do we value their lives or do we not? I think that we do. I also think anyone that doesn't should probably make it here to the top of the list. So in a world where we have decided that we're going to put guns to people's heads and tell them how to live, where we've decided that we're going to collect funds from everyone in the nation, I do think one of the first things, not the last, Not a little footnote in the budget. No, the first thing that gets fucking funded is food, shelter, and water for all of the people. Not most of the people, not some of the people. If there are only enough funds to build everyone a little dirt adobe hut, then that is the quality of our nation. That's where we're at. We gotta stop pretending that everyone can live in $1 million homes and then complaining when there's not money for it. If the best that our healthcare can afford is to give people one Tylenol and kick them out the door, then that's where we're actually at. And that sucks. But we have to face that reality that maybe America's quality of living is not as high as we're pretending while people are starving to death under a freeway. So yes, universal healthcare, the fucking good guys. Guns. Should we be allowed to own and operate guns? And if so, under what conditions? I don't like to demonize tools or technology. I think how you use something is way more important than what it is. However, guns have a unique history, and America has a unique circumstance. The arguments that I take for guns is like my grandma, my sister, right, my wife. If they get attacked by a man, having a gun dramatically reduces the chances that they get hurt. It allows them a chance where they do not have any to defend themselves. I like the idea of that equalization. I do not think relying on the police, see them up there and actually evil, is a good strategy at all. I think that is laughable. I think that most people who say just call the police have never experienced a violent crime or helplessness. And that is because they're just people. And I think that a lot of people who have experienced violent crime are, they're going to have a gun whether it's legal or not, because they know that they need it. A lot of people won't admit that America is a country where you need a gun if you want some chance of defending yourself. But it is. Now, I live in Texas. I grew up in Texas, and I've always lived by the very simple rule, they have a gun and I don't. So road rage, no chance. Picking a fight with some random guy, not on my life. If I ever stood up to somebody, stepped to him, said something, it's because I was willing to die for it. That is the reality of Texas. Like with most things, I think that guns should be allowed. I think they should be legal. I don't think they need to be regulated or tracked by the government. I think when you commit a crime, we should nail you to the wall. That's what I think. I understand and empathize with the urge to reduce crimes and to prevent crimes and to kind of move the culture away from them. I do, but I don't believe for a second that the tools make the criminal. I think the criminals are going to do whatever they're going to do, and how well they do it is a factor of the tools they're allotted, but I think it's kind of a losing battle of attrition to try and regulate out every tool they could use to do the crime. So guns, I'm going to put threat to us all. I think it's a necessary threat, but it's about as bad as true believers, right? So recently governments have been moving to enforce age verification across anything that connects to the internet. Game consoles, operating system, web browsers, Discord, and that is very frustrating. I believe that the internet should be an anonymous place. I think that back in the day when I got on the internet, it was that anonymity that allowed me to become who I am today. It allowed me to say things that I'd be too embarrassed to say, and for other people to shut me down not knowing I was a kid. They could say, hey, that's the stupid fuckingest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I would be like, oh, actually that is really dumb. And they would never do that if they just heard me saying that in a Chuck E. Cheese someplace. So I do not like the idea of tying my real world identity to the internet, which is kind of silly to say because I'm on YouTube. You can see my face. I'm not that hard to find. So like, hey guys, you know, but I just fundamentally do not like the idea of the internet being anything other than a protocol and a utility that we use to connect softwares and technologies. I think that once the signal hits my computer, it's none of your goddamn business. I think once I send it out, none of your goddamn business. Only the recipient should be interested in what I'm doing. I think that the dangers of tying that to a real person are far greater than the dangers of some kid being poorly parented. They're already being poorly parented. So, Mr. President, you get actually evil. Now, age verification is a trickier subject because there are services that make sense to keep children off of. Porn sites, Discord, gaming, Reddit, that sort of thing, where people obviously post horrendous things that no child should be exposed to. Gotta add one to the list. But for the reasons previously stated, I don't think that verifying that against a real-world identity is viable or good. I think it's dangerous and stupid. One of the arguments for age verification is that it can be safe. You can use a third party that simply says yes or no, and then the actual service only gets the yes or no. They never get your identity. However, I am pretty much never in favor of keeping a list of a class of citizens. Early in the BLM riots, one of those companies like Grubhub or Uber Eats or something came out and said, all black-owned businesses in this area get delivery for free. And what made me really uncomfortable about that was that some guy had a list of black-owned businesses. Like, I don't want that ever. So having a list of children that you send up to some company, I'm fundamentally against lists of people. I also think that the solution is absolutely better parenting. And I do understand, like, it is not possible to police your children in 2026 away from the internet. They have friends, they go to school. I learned about all the things I learned about at school, and that was back in the 90s. But to keep them from getting enthralled in a community, to keep them from becoming posters on Reddit, to keep them from becoming people with streamer voice, you can do that. That is within your power. You can't keep them from ever seeing a titty, but you can keep them from spending 18 hours a day staring at titties. And that is where the danger is. Them spending time on it and it becoming a majority of their brain. So, age verification, actually evil. Not only because it's an overstep, but because it takes responsibility away from the parents. And the parents need more responsibility at this point. They should be liable for all crimes, but we'll get into that. Now, the more astute of you may have noticed that I added Facebook down here, and that's because I wanted to remind myself I wanted to talk about publishers versus town squares. We used to have this argument in Congress about whether Facebook and Twitter were publishers or town squares. Do they choose what goes out? Are they a newspaper effectively? And can they be liable for what's posted on them? Or are they protected because they're not publishers? The government for a long time has protected them as not being publishers because they don't choose what gets posted. They are simply a town square, open and free to everybody. I think they're all moderated enough that they're fucking publishers. I think they should be absolutely liable for what gets posted on their websites. I think if somebody posts crazy, hateful rhetoric, you should absolutely have to take that down in a timely manner. And if it's too many users for you to manage, if it's simply impossible, you need to put limits on your site. You can only police 300,000 posters. You only get 300,000 posters. Sorry that your $18 billion isn't enough. So yeah, these assholes, actually evil. Just continuing through our political topics, one after another. I'm going to hit every single one I can think of. Universal basic income. Do I think people should get a stipend from the government that just lets them hit their necessities? No, I don't. But only in that hypothetical, theoretical world where we have solved that our first tax dollars go to fund food, water, and shelter. I don't think that electricity is necessary to life. I do think we should pay for it with the taxes after healthcare. I think that'd be dope. I think paying for internet for everybody right after electricity would be great. But I don't trust companies or the government. So I don't think that giving everyone $1,000 a month is actually going to help them. I think that a permanent system of giving everyone $1,000 a month would be bad. I think prices will go up, companies will exploit it. I think that people will absolutely take advantage of each other to collect their stipends. And I think that the money gets spent back into the billionaires. I think it's just more robbery with more steps. I do think that a universal basic income for one generation, maybe two, could fix some things. I think if the companies don't have time to take advantage and we give just enough to allow some mobility, effectively get rid of the fucking landlords. Because effectively what UBI aims to do is get rid of the pressure created by landlords. So in my world, we just get rid of the fucking landlords. But in the real world, it might provide enough mobility to at least set the landlords back enough that we can get a lot of people to a better place, but not everyone. I don't think it'll be enough to help everyone. And as I've said before, I think that the worst you can do in a society is where we have to do the measurement. So UBI, not malicious, but dangerous, because I think it cedes power to the corporations long term, like very long term, like 3 generations from now. Something we were talking about very recently was that Bernie Sanders wants the US public to own 50% of the big AI companies. Now, I hate this a lot. I think that AI just hit a tipping point where all the companies that fired people and replaced them with AI realize that it's going to cost them a fucking fortune. And so the AI companies have still not produced anything that anybody wants. And they're too expensive for the CEOs to continue to buy into. So those companies are going to crash and burn. But now Bernie's like, oh, dog, we need to own 50% of that. Leaving us holding the bag for the data centers, the infrasound lawsuits that will definitely come. I think it is awful. And I thought maybe I'm being unreasonable because, like, Bernie's not a loser. Bernie's not the worst guy ever. But then he said it. 1 minute and 30 seconds in his video I was watching. He said, children's health. Bernie Sanders dropped a what about the children in defense of all of us buying into AI companies. So, absolutely fucking not. Bernie Sanders, fine fellow. But the idea that we need to buy into the AI companies, actually evil. I often wrestle with whether or not I am a free speech absolutist. Should you be able to yell fire in a crowded theater? Should you be able to make threats at people? Should the content of your speech be moderated in the real world? Due to the way I was raised in America, my knee-jerk reaction, my programmed response is absolutely free speech, but not these exceptions, which I find very interesting. But the argument that actually convinces me that we need to moderate speech in the real world is the case of a pedophile hitting on a child. If I was out with my nephew and some guy was like, you look tasty, I would punch that guy in the fucking face and call the cops on myself for assaulting this man. Like, I don't think he should be able to do that. There exists in most cities, I don't know if it's in federal law or not, but an exemption for fighting words. You can hit people over fighting words. The N-bomb is famously one of these. These are things that justify violence. I think the phrase is usually something like words that would immediately breach the peace, according to a reasonable person. Then that's not protected. You get bopped, and it's the same as self-defense. Like, there was a reason you got bopped. And I think we just need to lean on that statute a lot harder and expand it, maybe. Because it's not just N-bombs, it's creepy pedophile guys. And it's, like, sexuality slurs. And it's, Christians telling me that me and my wife are living in sin. I don't necessarily think I should be able to punch you in the face for that, but I do think that the private citizen needs to have some expectation of privacy as they move through the public space. I think that I should be able to walk down a street without being harassed. I don't think that's a crazy thing to think. So I would say that I am not a free speech absolutist at all. I do think there should be limits. I don't think there should be limits against the government, only against other private citizens. This easily segues into the idea of, should there be a constitutional amendment for a right to privacy? And I absolutely think there should be. This is a personal bias of mine. I hate being filmed. I know you never guessed because I'm on YouTube, right? But when I was a kid, up until I was maybe 24, I would hide from cameras. Somebody took out a picture like of the family or something, I'd be ducking and diving. And so I get where people are coming from, not wanting to be filmed. I'm also sick and tired of every business thinking they can film me just because it's a private fucking property, which I think we need to get rid of. I won't get started on the flock cameras. I won't do it. But I think that because we're all forced to be out in public, we should respect the privacy of each other. I don't think that's an unreasonable ask. The exception, again, I think should be the state. You should absolutely be able to film the police, the judges, the county clerks. I think if you work for the government, you a mailman, I think we should be able to film you, record you, draw pictures of you, whatever. I think that the state gets no immunity ever in anything. They are the most liable. So, assholes with cameras, recording folks in public, rude and annoying. The Supreme Court, should it be a lifetime appointment? Absolutely fucking not. That is the dumbest thing. Not only is it like unreasonable to not be able to be fired from your job, but you're 100 years old. Nobody wants you making decisions on Jack Diddley, and you shouldn't want to be making decisions on Jack Diddley. I think that in general, in the government, we are doing this whole Weekend at Bernie's thing where we're propping people up even though they're effectively dead. Now, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't want to bring up bad memories, but do you guys remember that 2 weeks that everyone said RBG was dead? Nobody could find her. Nobody had seen a picture. And then she pops up, but then she's basically dead. Also, the Biden years. Also, right fucking now. It's so gross. It's dumb. I think that if you are over, I'm going to say 70, you need to fuck off out of government. I think you leave it to the younger people. You can stay on as an advisor. Nobody's saying you can't be an aide to a congressman or like, you know, an advisor to the president. We're just saying that you can't have your finger on the button because you don't have the same skin in the game. Also, you like, whether you feel it or not in your body, it is breaking down. It is. And you are not the best judge of that. One, you ain't a doctor. Two, it's happening to you. Your mental faculties are making it harder for you to identify that you are stupid. It's just a mess. And we're like tiptoeing around these people. Nobody wants to tell them, Grandma, it's time to take your keys. Well, I'm taking your keys to the government. So, lifetime appointments, actually evil. Yeah, I'm making a tier list. You want to see it? Speaking of the Supreme Court, I do think that most things fall under the purview of the state. I think if all the states are subject to the same laws, kind of defeats the purpose of the states. Like, let's just have one government if that's the case. The goal of having multiple different states is that people live different ways. You can move to other states and then experience something more aligned with your interests. Unfortunately, landlords have ensured that that is physically impossible for most of us. If we weren't subject to landlords, we could just move. But we're not. So we're stuck. So then we have issues like gay marriage, where we have to fight about it because we can't just move. Some people get fired up about like, I've always lived here and I shouldn't have to move. I have virtually no sympathy for you. I do think that if one guy can just move and make it easier on himself and everyone else, we should probably do that. I just fundamentally do not value places. I think if it is better for you to move than to try to change the community you're in, that is probably the best solution for everyone. However, on a topic like gay marriage, I think that the federal government needs to treat all citizens the fucking same. I think that if anyone can get married, everyone can get married as a legal matter. I think it's up to the church if they want to marry you under their traditions. But as far as the state is concerned, just treat people the goddamn same. I am so tired of filling out forms where it's like, well, what race are you? Are you white? Which I'm going to cover whiteness maybe in a separate video. This is a trigger for me. Please do not call me white. But I have to figure out if I'm white, Hispanic. What's the other one? Hispanic, non-white? You got to figure out if you black, if you Native American. Well, I'm from here. You tell me. And why the government needs this information, I don't know. Again, I don't think we should keep lists of people, especially classes of people. So, I support gay marriage as far as I support the state keeping a record of anyone being married, which I don't. But my only point is, like, the federal government needs to treat everybody the fucking same. So I am pro gay marriage, and everyone that goes out there and boxes a cop for gay marriage, you the good guys. You the good guys. Just as a side note, on this particular day, in this particular time, they are trying to erode those rights in certain places. And so we actually do have to box cops again for gay marriage, which is absurd. I grew up, it was illegal when I was a child. And then it was legal. And water. And I just can't imagine the experience of that being taken away now after it was no, yes, and then no again. That is fucking brutal and awful. So if you have the opportunity to fight against that, please do in our current living time. It's absurd. It's upsetting, okay? Okay, moving on from civil unions to actual unions. Do I support unionization? Yes and like no. Okay, let me tell you what I think. Okay, I think it would be great if all workers of a certain category got together and they were like, hey, we can provide you high quality, well-trained workers for your needs, and they get good pay, and like, we just won't work for you if you're a douche. I think that's fantastic. I would consider that more of a guild. Unfortunately, the unions that I've seen in the real world in America today are often skimming off the top, working with the CEOs to be absolute douchebags, keeping people out of the trades. And I don't like the history of violence they have against non-union workers. If you're going to win on merit, then do that. But don't like throw bricks at people that are willing to take the jobs that you're not. And I understand that's unrealistic, and there is contention there, and there are competing motives, but I don't like it. I don't like it one bit when they get violent with non-union people. So the idea of unions, super support. The reality of unions, less so. So we're going to put that under just people? I'm not willing to put that as good guys because of the reality. Holy shit, why is it so hard to find, like, I just wanted a flag of Israel that wasn't AI. I have AI images on Hide, and they're all still AI. It is physically painful. Dual citizenship of our government officials, I think, is an obviously really stupid and bad thing. It baffles me that people defend this ever. Why would it be okay for our government officials in charge of our documents and strategies and works and budgets and foreign policy decisions? Why would it ever be okay for them to be a citizen of another country? That's unhinged. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I picked the wrong symbol for this. I have to put it threat to us all are actually evil. And I'm in a prison of my own making here. I am really confident. Like, I got a little bit of hubris with the things I'm searching. I just searched sperm stew without missing a beat. All right, let's talk about abortion. So some people think that life begins at conception. Other people think it's at the heartbeat. Other people still think it's when you can talk or have sentience or when you come out of a vagina, even though not everybody does. They think it's when you breathe your first air, I guess, or something. Here's the thing. I am not confident enough in any of these positions to hold a gun to your head and tell you how to live. I'm just not. So, I'm not going to. I think that the confidence people have on this topic, either way, is unhinged. I think the statement that a third trimester abortion or post-birth abortion is totally fine is a little dishonest. I think the idea that it begins at conception and you are a literal baby murderer for removing that sperm is also disingenuous. If we return to my previous topic of the death penalty, which I don't support specifically because I don't trust the state to make those decisions. I also don't trust the state to make these decisions. I do think this is between a woman and her doctor. I will mention and at least acknowledge the rights of men. If it was not such a burden on the woman, I would support men having rights regarding the abortion. But I don't, because there is a tragic reality for the woman right now, here today, not in hypothetical land, not, I would carry it if I could. No, they're actually tearing their bodies apart right now. Some of them are dying. Some of them are being kept alive as corpse incubators. And that is super fucked up. Sometimes we have to take a couple of losses to do the right thing. So I'm going to say people are just people believing in this one. I think that it should be up to the woman and her doctor. Anything else is pure hubris. Are you going to divorce me?
No.
Okay. I know I'm hitting a lot of hot topics here. But that's the whole point of this video, right? To just hit every single topic I can think of.
Yeah.
To get everyone mad. And do you know why I'm doing it?
Why?
Do you know what my hidden goal is? To say fuck furries unopposed. I just want to dump on furries, that's it. You were sleeping when I started, but I've been at it for 4 hours, so I totally get it that you're awake now. I will cook for you when I'm done. I'm sure that some portion of you believe that this video is almost over. And you would be so fucking wrong. We are doing every single topic I can think of. So, let's talk about right to repair. Should you be allowed to modify, hack things that you have bought and paid for? Absolutely yes. Obviously. There is a cohort of big money guys, Apple, John Deere, that would prefer if you had to go through their approved technicians to get your things repaired. The argument goes something like an independent repair shop could do it wrong and set your boat on fire. Real argument. They've also argued that an X could get access to your data and then stalk you. Why are the cars keeping our data? Well, now that's a question for your lifetime appointed Supreme Court now, isn't it? So, right to repair, I don't think I actually need to make any points. Absolutely the good guys. But in the same vein, should you be allowed to do self-harm? Should it be legal for people to end their own lives? The common example is like an 80-year-old guy in pain every day. Should he be able to get with a doctor and just say outie shouty, and that doctor doesn't get charged with murder? Should you be allowed to be fat, or to smoke, or to go bungee jumping, or go caving? Yes, I think you should be allowed to do all of those things. You should be allowed legally to go to a doctor and end your life if you are done so. I think that is a fundamental part of being human. Making the choice to live or die is the most basic freedom you can have. I do think we should involve a doctor in the process. If we can normalize the idea that when you want to die, you just go to a doctor and be like, hey, can I get some of that? And then they can screen you and see, like, is this because of something else? And then maybe we can intervene and actually save more lives by normalizing suicide. However, smokers can go straight to hell. All of you. You know why? Because I've cleaned up so much goddamn litter in my lifetime. It is absurd the amount of litter that smokers produce. Every road in America, every beautiful place that used to be beautiful, every riverbed, every curb, every dumpster, I will clean it up, and within 24 hours, somehow, they have trashed it again. People came to my property where I cleaned up. They knew I cleaned up. They looked me dead in the eyes, put their cigarettes out on their shoe, and then threw it on the ground in front of me. What The actual fuck, you psychopaths. You are almost worse than millionaires. I'm going to put you in trauma bias, but know that I'm giving you side eye about it on this topic. And because it is a trauma bias, we're going to talk a little bit more about it. You guys remember those truth commercials from back in the day on MTV? The ones that Big Tobacco was legally forced to produce and fund? Yeah, so those were actually a psyop. The whole goal was to normalize the concept of smoking, to make it something that exists in your brain that situations are incomplete without. I have been hyper aware of smoking my entire life because I was locked in a house with two parents that smoked. And it was awful, and I hated everything about it. I've been surrounded by deadbeat smokers my entire life. I am so glad to have moved out on my own with my wife and not had to interact with a smoker in a long time. It's a beautiful life. But Big Tobacco's trying to make a comeback. They were almost dead. I had not seen a smoking advertisement or interacted with a smoker in years. And then suddenly, recently, as we start to report record low numbers of Gen Z smoking, suddenly it's in every show. Suddenly all of the YouTubers are promoting these quit smoking products, which it's not about quitting smoking. It's actually about convincing you that people are addicted to smoking. See how that works? It just puts it in your brain. And I'm saying this because the smoking industry invented subliminal messaging. They are not new to this. They've been doing this a long time. I've been watching it my whole damn life. Don't fucking fall for it. Yeah, I'm passionate about that one. What else we got? All right, this is where I'm going to lose most of you. I know I didn't lose you at Israel. I know I didn't lose you at the Supreme Court. I know I didn't lose you as Streamer Voice or Mel Gibson. But I think that in 100 years, we will look back on this time and be absolutely disgusted with the concept of pet ownership. I think the idea that we own animals is super fucking dumb. Don't get me wrong. Don't click away yet. I think you people that rescue animals that are having a legitimately rough time, nurse them back to health, take care of the ones that are blind and could absolutely not hunt in the wild. Certain breeds that we've created can't even breathe. Taking care of those animals is one thing. That is a thing that is good and honorable and should be supported. But buying a dog, breeding dogs for sale, having 12 cats that you ignore while they poop all over the floor, it's not okay. Yeah, I think in 100 years, we're going to be disgusted at pet ownership. The idea that you leash a dog up and walk him once a day when he could be out living in the fucking forest is appalling to me. I have a dog. I love my dog. It's not my dog. Not malicious, but dangerous. This picture is a little too small to see, but in factory farming, the chickens are pumped full of growth hormones so that their bodies are too big for their legs to support. But it doesn't actually matter because their feet will never touch the ground throughout their entire lifetime, which is not that long because we have to kill them early so that their flesh is tasty. Factory farming is an abomination, and I really this goes along with maybe the cops, maybe billionaires. This is an absolute evil that we need to end as swiftly as possible. It is seriously fucked up. Student loan forgiveness is a tough one for me because I didn't choose, I actively chose not to go to college. I could have gone to college. I'm a smart enough guy. There were scholarships available. I could have applied myself. Even now, I could probably go to school for relatively cheap. So when people walk away with hundreds of thousands of student loan debt and say we should just forgive it, it initially knee-jerks hey, maybe not. Maybe you made a mistake and you need to pay for it. But then I started to understand how predatory they were. These loans are majority interest. They're not even principal. It's an actual scam that took advantage of children. So, I actually do think that being in debt to the government as a concept is dumb. They work for you. Forgive yourself. Fuck them. But on the topic of subsidizing higher education, I think we need to lean more into apprenticeships. I think we should partner with private companies. Yes, rare, but we should actually pay private companies that hire people for apprenticeships. We should fund that instead of the college itself. I have met too many graduates, both in like STEM stuff like computer science or chemistry, and actual trades like truck driving or plumbing, that are so unprepared for work. They have literally no idea what the fuck to do. That I don't know that the college was a good use of their time at all. I would much rather partner with experienced masters of the craft and have them paid by the government to train new people. Not do a 4-year class on the theory, but to get them working and doing the job. Have their own curriculum, so you can say, I was trained by IBM, and that actually fucking means something. That would be my preference. Student loan forgiveness, we're going to call those the good guys. I have flip-flopped on open borders a couple of times. I really don't like... I am from South Texas, literally on the Gulf of Mexico. And so my opinion of open borders is... I can't say my opinion of open borders is colored. No. That's not right. My opinion of open borders is painted by the culture in which I grew up in. My dad's got some opinions. The people around me have some opinions. The government says some very untrue things. And the cartels do exist. So there's like a threat there that is obvious and tangible, but at the same time, we let a lot of things happen, and I don't like the lack of enforcement or policy. I've seen 1,000 stories of people come in on visas and then get screwed by the system, the paperwork or some little thing, and I've seen people that absolutely do not deserve to be here just stay here forever, picking up their Facebook checks, you know? So when it comes to open borders, I think that we should probably not be completely open borders. That seems like a mistake. I think that there should be a process for currently in America undocumented people to become documented. I think it should be an easy process. And I think once you commit a crime, we don't deport you. We just put you in the slave jail like everyone else. Now, that's obviously a bit of a joke. You know, I don't think anyone should be in the slave jail, but I do think that if you're currently here, we should just grandfather you in and then move forward, having everyone follow the process. So set a date, like, I don't know, the end of 2030. And if you're not in by then, if you're not documented, right, if you haven't gone to a DMV, then you get deported when you get caught. Just straight up, no questions. Sounds reasonable when I say it like that, right? Everything sounds reasonable when I say it like that. That's the problem, right? I'm not debating anyone. I'm just saying stuff. So I'm going to say for open borders, it is malicious because you know that that's a bad policy to just let anyone in unaccosted. That's obviously stupid. So I'm going to call it a threat to us all. But I do think the people that are already here, criminal or not, should go to the DMV, be able to register, and just like start from there. And if you commit a crime, you go to jail like a normal person. And if you don't make it to the DMV by the end of 2030, then you go away. You go to another country. I do think that military service should be compulsory. I think every single person in America should be forced to do military service for 2 years. At the age of 18, preferably. For a lot of reasons. Other countries do this, and I think it's actually a really good idea. It does interrupt your life. It does mean that you don't get actually into the workforce for a couple of years, but you all have a shared experience where you did something hard and you had to follow a routine and be disciplined. And I think that's just a fundamentally good starting place for a robust adult. I think once you've gone through that experience, you'll get more adults. Now, I am not like the most adult, obviously. I sit at home while my wife works, and I contribute nothing to society. In fact, I'm making a YouTube video right now. But if I had gone to the military for 2 years when I was 18, I think I'd have better outcomes. And I understand there's some bias there because like I'm 35 now. I would be willing to do it now. I think everyone under maybe 40 should probably have to do it. And then we'll do the next generation, right? But I do think countries that require it are doing a good thing. Now, that's not to say that we should be fighting wars, right? I know that America loves a war, but I don't think we should be sending 18-year-olds anywhere to die. I think we should be doing infrastructure projects. I don't know, building roads or something, right? Build roads for 2 years. You will be a better adult. So, mandatory military service. I'm going to say those are the good guys. Potentially a lot of hate for this video. And it's all just an excuse to say fuck furries. Now, what about reparations, not just for black people, but for Native Americans? We did both of them real dirty, and we owe them a moral debt for sure, but do we owe their current descendants a financial debt is kind of the big question. You know that I don't like the idea of treating any class of people differently. However, our crimes were abominable. They were literal atrocities to both groups. It is not something we can fix or make up for. What we can do, what can we do? This is one topic that I don't know what the right answer is, because like I don't know what's been proposed on this topic, and I don't know like my own history. Like, I don't know if we own slaves or not. No clue. I know that we probably were slaves at some point, but not American slaves. My instinct is that no combination of currently existing people owe a debt to other currently existing people. Like, there's no moral debt there. I didn't do anything to anyone, but I recognize the damage that it's done generations later. They're still dealing with it. So I think that the best we can do, honestly, is just, again, raise that lowest position you can get in society up, and everyone will benefit. If there is a specific proposal that I'm missing on this topic, just let me know, and I'd be happy to weigh in on that in the comments. But as of right this second, it seems unfeasible to me. But I think the people that are pointing out the lasting impacts of the atrocities are the good guys. So I'm going to put this in the good guys. Executive orders and delegations from Congress I consider to be the same problem. The president currently, through executive orders exclusively, has wildly too much power unchecked. They are doing things in executive orders that are laughable. They're absurd. It is crazy to think that the head of the executive branch can do any of that stuff. I honestly think we should take the pardon away as well, but Congress also delegates a lot of their responsibilities. They're going to call them powers, but their responsibilities out to agencies that then do rulemaking for them instead of passing actual laws that have to be voted on. So I would really like to see the executive order gone, the pardon gone, and Congress forced to take on all of their responsibilities themselves. Maybe work, I don't know, like 146 days a year. That would be more than they currently work. That would be more than they work. So I'm going to say Congress delegations and executive orders, actually evil. Some states have what's called castle doctrine, where if you try to break into my house, or you do break into my house, I can shoot you dead in my doorway and we're good. Other states have what's called duty to retreat, which is where you have to try to escape if you can. If you have a back door, you gotta go. You can't just hunker down and shoot the guy when he comes in. There are arguments to be made for both. I don't think protecting your property is a good enough reason to kill somebody. I just fundamentally don't. I think preventing bodily harm, probably a good enough reason to escalate the situation deadly force. I don't expect the average citizen to follow rules of engagement or to understand escalation of force or any of that. I do think maybe if we had less of a culture around fighting to the death over property, that we might have a better world. So I'm going to say duty to retreat is the good guys. All right, I'm going to be upfront with you guys. I don't fully understand stocks. I don't get it. I don't understand how it's not just gambling. Putting money into the market seems like a good thing to do for the economy, but I don't like the idea that companies are getting money that is not from sales, right? Like, sell a product or a service. That's where your money should come from. I'm not a businessman, so I will admit that I fundamentally don't understand stocks. For that reason, maybe, possibly, I don't like that 401ks are tied up in the stock market. I think retirement is fucked to such a degree that enough people are going to have to deal with it that we need a solution for everyone. I will probably be okay. I'm not like a injured guy. I'll get old and then I'll probably die at work. But that's been like my whole family throughout all of time, you know? But for people like my wife or my mom, I would prefer that they don't just die in the streets begging for food, right? There's got to be a better option. I don't know what it is, but I think quoting the stock market or considering how much money is in it or how a certain stock is doing or how 401ks in general are doing, all of that makes me wildly uncomfortable. I don't like relying on corporations for anything. So I'm going to say the stock market and 401ks, we put that trauma bias because I just don't know enough about it. All right, so I asked in the IRC and there were no more topics that anyone wanted me to cover. My wife couldn't think of any other topics. This should be a complete overview of my political opinions. And if I have not mentioned something here, you can very likely infer my answer from this information. I do not intend to ever make a political video again. I just wanted to kind of clear the air on some of these because I know people have been wondering. So we're going to go through it one more time because these pictures mean nothing to any of you, but they are each individually hilarious to me. So in the actually evil category, things that need to fuck off immediately, and I would be willing to hold...
Get put on a list.
Oh, I guarantee I'm on a list after this video. Things that need to fuck off immediately, and I cannot find any argument to support them. Like, they are inherently bad, not just for me, but for everybody, collectively and individually. We've got billionaires, number fucking 1. Landlords, number 2. Cops, number 3. Age verification is just a pedophile wish list. Companies being treated as not publishers while they're publishing propaganda and moderating what goes out, actually evil. The idea that we should buy half of the AI companies, unhinged. Lifetime appointments, unhinged. Dual citizenship, laughable. Factory farming is completely unacceptable to every human that is aware of it. There is no argument to be made for treating animals this way. Even if you love the taste, even if they're good, even if it makes you a ton of money, their feet will never touch the ground. They're overgrown with growth hormones. It is awful, and it is a travesty. Executive orders and Congress delegation is not good for anybody. Now, trauma bias, the things that have hurt me personally and led to me hating these with a fiery fury on par with the billionaires, but I would not support violence against. Furries, number 1. Farmers, number 2. AI. I would support patriotic action against their data centers, but not their people. I don't think they need to be taken out behind the shed. Smokers? Shed's looking more inviting. Stock markets, 401ks seems like a scam, but historically it's been totally fine over time, and I just don't know enough about it, but my instinct is we need a different plan for retirement for enough people. Rude and or annoying as shit. Fake voices. This includes streamer voice. This includes gay affect. This includes that stupid southern twang that is not real at all. Those people did not grow up in such a time period to sound like that. Also, people that film in public. Fuck those guys. Threat to all of us. Mel Gibson. Oh, sorry. That's True Believers. The death penalty, the state should not have the ability to kill citizens. Connecting your real world ID to your internet identity is a mistake. No good will come from that. Actually open borders, not a process, not some kind of filtering system, just actually anyone can come here at any time, is an obvious mistake. Like, you would never say that to Sun Tzu. He would punch you in the dick. Tell me he wouldn't. Tell me he wouldn't. I love you. Okay, not malicious, but actually pretty dangerous, just kind of under the surface. They're not doing it on purpose. Cultural Christians are probably the biggest one. People who believe in and repeat things that the government said without doing their own research. And by own research, I mean actual experiments where you find things out. If the government says we went to the moon and you say, oh, we went to the moon, you're an idiot and you are dangerous. Gun ownership is not malicious in most cases. Most people want to defend themselves. I want my mom to be able to defend herself. I want my wife to be able to defend herself. But I recognize that it is dangerous to allow guns at the level that we do. Universal basic income is a short-term solution. It is not a long-term solution. I do not want to entrench corporations that deeply into our society. I don't want to accept that they're here forever. I want to believe that there is a future 2,000 years from now where we tell those guys to go fuck themselves and we just take the land back from the landlords. Free speech absolutists are a problem because I do not want some pedophile flirting with my child. Like, I do think we should have rules around that. I don't think you should be able to call your ex and tell her that she smells nice and you've been in her house. Like, it's just not okay. That's really specific. I'm not going to say it. I think there should be guardrails on free speech against other private citizens. I do think you should be able to say literally anything you want to the government. The government can go fuck itself. I think that most pet owners are well-meaning, but I think in 100 years, we're going to look back and be like, that was really fucked up to do. I think rescuers, people that take care of like disabled pets, you're caregivers. You are not owners of an object. But no matter how gilded your cage is, keeping stuff in a cage is fucked up. Topics that were just people being people could go either way. People think stupid things for stupid reasons, and I don't fault them for that. I really don't. I think we all do, and I think we need to be a little more empathetic about the conclusions that we reach, understanding how we got there, and instead of trying to change it, just accepting that if we had lived that same life, we would probably think the same thing. This includes homeless people, some of who are drug addicts, people who think that we went to the moon. There are people that think that we live streamed the moon landing. People that think voting matters or doesn't matter. It's largely based on their experience and whether or not they believe that the vote is rigged. It has less to do with the proportions in their area and a lot more to do with thinking that it's not real at all. Unions, for or against, these are just people trying to get by. I do not like the violence. I think it undercuts everything that you're doing. Abortion, for or against, it's very much random how you grew up and what you believe. If you think you are killing a baby by taking that sperm out, you would probably hesitate too. But if you literally didn't think there was anything in there until 3 months after it's born, you wouldn't feel that either. And which of those you are is pretty much random. At least you should not be so confident in your position that you would hold a gun to another person's head and say they have to believe what you believe. Because I know for a fact that you're not that fucking sure, you psychopath. Finally, the good guys. The handful of good guys that we got out of this experiment. Not Dr. Fauci, but universal health care should be like the number 4 thing that we do with tax money. Right? Like food, shelter, water, health care, electricity, internet. That's kind of the hierarchy of basics before we even get to roads or schools. Just get everyone in a house and not bleeding to death. Remembering that, like, whatever quality of life results from taking care of everyone, that is the real quality of life of your nation. Not the top guy, not the trillionaire that can live on a yacht. It's the homeless guy that can't find a place to sleep tonight and gets harassed by the cops. That's your actual fucking country. Gay marriage, civil rights. Everyone should be treated the same by the federal government. Nobody thinks that's a controversial statement. Nobody will look you dead in the face and say, well, I think we should have special laws for black people. That's unhinged. That's stupid. So people that fight the fight, because right now they're trying to take gay marriage away again. And that is so fucked up. Treat people the same. That is the thing that keeps us human. We need to stop treating suicide as taboo. We need to make an easy to follow, easy to get into process for people that want to die. Old people, young people, all people. If you think you want to die, you should be able to go to a doctor and say, hey doc, I'm donezo. And that doctor should screen you for like temporary mental issues, right? Like, are you suffering from depression today? Are you, in your right mind? Are you drunk? Are you high? And if not, y'all should make a plan together. Be like, okay, Friday at 6, you're donezo. Sad to think about. But if you care about freedom at all, this is uncontroversial. Give people that path out and we can avoid a ton of tragedy. Right to repair. You should be able to modify and hack anything that you own. You fucking own it. It is absurd to say that you can't work on your own stuff. It's absurd to say that we're going to make it hard for you to work on your own stuff. Changing the terms of a sale after the sale should be illegal. Like, there should be court action for that. Student loan debt should be forgiven because it is insanely predatory. People owe amounts that are purely interest that they will never be able to pay down. And that is not a moral failing of an 18-year-old. It's a stupid decision of a nation. 2 years military service should be mandatory for all 18-year-olds, but also everyone under 40 currently. We have to lead the way. Like, if we want kids to do that, we have to show that we actually value the fucking thing. So I'm not saying just 18-year-olds, just the next generation. No, we all need to do it if we want to prove that it's good for you. Nobody should be required to go kill other humans as their military service. I just think they should do, like, build roads and, live in a barracks. Like, I think it would be good for people to do some hard work that is actually productive and has a tangible benefit to society. I think it would help bring us all a lot closer together to have this shared experience. I don't know enough about reparations to know if they're the actual good guys, but the people bringing awareness to it, the people bringing awareness to the moral debt that the nation owes to specific groups of people, mostly blacks and Native Americans, I think they're doing a good thing because the nation does owe them. The individual humans alive today don't. And I think we need to square with that somehow. I just don't know how. But good job bringing it up. And then finally, kind of a weird place to end, but the duty to retreat states that say you can't kill somebody over property are doing a good thing, I think. I think the culture around the idea that you can just murder anyone in your home over your property is probably contributing to some bad feelings in other places. I finished editing, I got my snacks, I was ready to upload, and then I remembered one more that is actually important enough to me that I need to re-edit the video before I upload. The U.S. territories disproportionately serve in the military, are not recognized as states, are taken advantage of, and have to beg Congress for funding for a hospital every year. That pisses me off so much every single time I see it. Make them states or make them free. This territory stuff is bullshit. So that is my tier list of things that I fucking hate. I hope you've enjoyed this political spiel because there will not be another. If you cannot infer my thoughts from this explanation, 1, you dumb. And 2, email me at fk@crabsoft.download. I will be happy to answer specific questions if you just put them in an email and send it to me. But yeah, don't at me about any of this. I'm just a guy on the internet. Ridiculous.